the anticipation. Hello and welcome. It is January 14th, Thursday, and it's episode 2 of TheoryCraft. Hello and welcome. Can you see me? Can you hear me all right? Is everything good on your guys' end? How's it going? Good to see everyone. Everyone doing all right? All right. Hype. PogChamp. Very cool, very cool. Hello. So, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in last week. I'd like to thank everyone on YouTube and on Discord and everything for the nice comments. It's been very pleasant. I didn't think it was actually going to be this positive, so thank you very much, guys. I appreciate you guys appreciating this, and I hope we can all learn together. With that being said, any feedback you have is much appreciated. I've been reading all the YouTube comments. I've been responding to Discord DMs, emails. So anything you have, feedback, things you think might need to be changed, anything like that. The format of the show, I mean, it's a new idea, so it's still subject to change. And, we're going to work out the kinks and try to get it better and better. My goal is to have a show that lower level players can learn from, of course. That should be the first priority, but also that higher level players can still watch and be entertained by and enjoy it. Yeah, emails, of course. I'm a professional. I have an email, and you can email me at carson@backtowarcraft.com. You can send me your replays. You can send me suggestions for the show, who you'd like to see interviewed, maybe, because, of course, the fourth week of every month, we're going to have an interview with someone. I'm still figuring out who that's going to be this month. Maybe Bidu. Maybe someone else. Who knows? Who knows? You'll never know. You'll never know until the week before, and then I'll announce it. Okay. Awesome. So we're going to move on to today's episode. Last week was Socks planning. We talked a lot about human against orc, and it was kind of cool. I got sent in a couple of replays that were indeed human versus orc. So we can watch some of those today, compare, contrast, figure out what maybe these lower level players are doing even better than Sock. We can hope. We can see. All right, going to the notebook. So today's episode's title is January Viewer Replay Analysis. So I asked you guys last week to send me in replays, and I got quite a few. I had to I had to cipher through them. I had to find the best ones. I of course can't do all of them because we'd be here all day, but I did get 6 replays for today. So I apologize if you sent me a replay and I'm not watching it today, but we'll get around to it and keep sending them in. If you want to send the same replay again, I'd be happy to do it. Next month, of course, the second week of February, we will also be doing this sort of show. So, there's always a chance for you to get your replays in. You could email them. There's a channel in the Back to Warcraft Discord where you can put them. You can tweet them at me, with a link to War3 info, any of that sort of stuff. Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so let's first talk about what sort of replays I'm looking for. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about what sort of replays you should be looking for. Because with a reoccurring episode such as this, a reoccurring theme such as this, we need to know how to learn from our replays. And that's sort of what I want to get across in these episodes, is how can you take your replays and learn from them, right? Because there was something Grubby said actually on his stream once. Maybe it was on a YouTube commentary, but it was quite a while ago, maybe about 5-6 years ago. I remember him saying, and maybe he said this more than once, but he said when he was a professional player, when he was playing all day for a living, he would wake up in the morning and he would go to replayers.net or WCR, whatever the replay website was back then, and he would download every single replay and watch all of them before he started playing for the day. Not just orc replays, not just professional level replays, but every single replay, all of them. And you might think, like, what can he get out of that? Watching players that are much lower skill than him, much lower skill, right? Because these are websites that every single replay could be uploaded. You could upload your own replays. There would be lots and lots of replays from players that, frankly, don't know what they're doing compared to Grubby at the time. So you ask yourself, what can he learn from that? Well, that's what we're going to try to work on throughout these episodes, these viewer replay analysis episodes. We're going to talk about how we can learn from ourselves and how we can learn from people maybe even lower skill than ourselves. Because, of course, last week we learned from someone who's probably better than all of us. Maybe not. I don't know who's in the chat, but I don't know who's on the YouTube either. But, Sock probably better than all of us if I were to be a betting man. Okay, so what sort of replays to start off with am I looking for? So I'm looking for replays that are just your average game, right? I don't want a game that's like your best ever, because I want a good estimate of how good you are, right? Because when you're getting coaching or something like that, and this is, coaching to lots of people live, right? But if it were one-on-one coaching or this sorts of coaching, then I want your average game. I don't want the best game you've ever played in your entire life, because then I'm going to think, oh, you're too good for my coaching. You're a GM player. How am I supposed to help you, man? You'll be beating Sock in no time, right? So not a game where you play really, really, really well. Not a game where you play terribly. I don't want you to be embarrassed, right? I want it to be just an average game. An average game where you play standard, maybe you play a wacky strat, but a wacky strat that you're comfortable with, right? So you have all sort of the kinks worked out. You're getting to the point where maybe there's some improvements to be made, but you're still pretty comfortable in this game and you're pretty happy with how you played overall, right? So that's point one, average game. A reasonable length. Like I said, we can't be here all day, so within 12 to 20 minutes is generally the replays I picked for today. If you send me a 45-minute game, although I'm very happy you had such a nice game, such an epic game, and I'm sure it was very entertaining, but I will save that for the tournament casts, the epic games, because we're trying to do some analysis. And generally when you get past about the 12 to 15 minute mark in the game, it gets to this wacky stage where, even if you analyze pro games, there's still going to be some stuff that doesn't quite make sense, because you don't always get practice that late into a game, right? Okay. A game where you lose and don't know why, well, that's kind of self-evident, right? Maybe that's something I can help you with. If you are a player of lower skill, you can say, oh, I felt like I played pretty well. I did my strat pretty well. Maybe my opponent didn't play that good from my point of view, and he still was able to beat me. Is it imbalance? Or, is the game broken? Is it a map that I shouldn't be playing? Or was there some mistakes that I missed, maybe? Right? And that's what I can help you with. Maybe. Possibly. Hopefully. And a strategy we've covered in previous episodes, like I said earlier, we're going to be doing some human versus orc. We're even going to start with a human versus orc on Northern Isles. And we're going to watch it from the human's perspective, just like we did last week. But even if you do it retroactively, once we're, 20, 30 episodes in, I hope we make it that far, of course, feel free to send me replays from any past strategy and just put a note in it. Hey, this is my strat where I'm sort of copying Sock style, or next week, oh, I'm copying Hitman style against Criplord, and, maybe there's some things we can talk about from there, and maybe there's some things we can even learn from there that you do better than these players that we're analyzing. Okay? So those are the sort of replays I'm looking for. And now there's another point, because that, of course, is just for the show, right? That's just so that we can get the most out of your replays that you send to us, right? But what sort of games should you be looking for when you're analyzing your own replays? Because you can't just count on me once a week or once a month to look at your replays and analyze them. I'm only going to get through one game, so you have a lot more volume to get through, and you need to know how to cipher these, what to look at. So let's talk a little bit about that. How can we analyze our own replays? So here's a few little tips. Here's a few little tips for analyzing your own replays. So we did this last week. We watched a replay from one player's perspective. This means you turn Fog of War on. Down in the bottom right, you choose, yourself or your opponent, and you sort of watch it as though you're in the game. This is really helpful. Very, very helpful, because you can sort of make assumptions on, if you're watching it from your opponent's point of view, what you think you're going to do at this time, if it's a replay that you don't have memorized. Or if you're watching it from your point of view, you can make assumptions. What is my opponent going to do? How should I react to that based on the information that I actually had in the game? So watching replays from one player's perspective, if they're yours or if they're professional players, and you can still do the same sort of guesswork, it's very, very helpful, extremely helpful. And I'd recommend this to everyone, regardless of skill. And I do believe this is something that top players do as well. Although don't quote me on that. But I would guess if you were to ask any top players, they would say, yes, this is a very good way to watch replays. Okay, writing down timings. So we did this a little bit last week. We were talking about the orc tech timings, the human tech timings, how they compared, how this related to when our secondary heroes were out, how this related to when the orcs expansion was up. Lots of things from timings. And this is literally, when I say timings, the time that things happen. If you're a night elf, the time that your huntress hull comes up. Very basic. The time that your naga comes out of the tavern as a night elf. Right? If you're undead, the time that you get your lich with orb on tier 3. Simple things like that, and you can literally just write down what the in-game time is. And the point of this is not to memorize all these timings. Of course, this isn't, it ends up being like chess theory where you have to learn, all these variations of the Sicilian or whatever, and you end up with so many things in your head, but really you don't have to do this if you just write it down once. And I actually take notes for the show, but I don't really read off the notes. The reason why I take the notes is because actually the process of writing something down or typing something down helps you to internalize it. Right? Pretty basic. We've all learned that in the past. Write it down, type it out, all that stuff. And if you do this with timings, they sort of get more and more solidified in your head. And then when you're watching replays in the future, you'll remember, oh, he's teching without a barracks. His tech will be done at 4 minutes and 10 seconds. That means, oh, it'll be done at the third dotted day, the third dotted night, So just little things, and you'll internalize them a little bit better. Make sense? So that's writing down timings. Writing down what our opponent's goals are. Well, that was what last week's episode was about. We understand what our opponent wants to achieve. And if we know what our opponent wants to achieve, then we know how to counter that. And we can start to formulate a plan based on knowing what our opponent wants to do, or at least making an educated guess based on what our opponent wants to do. Right? That all makes sense? So that's the sort of things that we can do when we're watching our own replays. And that's the sort of things that I'll try to do also when I'm watching your guys' replays or professional level replays. I think they're pretty helpful. And, you can learn the game. I'm not someone who actually plays a lot, but I watch a lot of games. And you can learn quite a bit about this game or, other games, other things in life just by watching. You don't actually have to do the muscle memory work, although, it's very fun, and you can get a lot better a lot quicker if you do play, but you can get so much information just off watching if you're watching in a way that you're trying to be educated by it, not just through an entertainment lens, right? Any questions about that so far? What we've covered? A lot of chatting going on. Any questions? Sokka's very hip. He is very hip. Ark says, definitely imbalanced and broken. Absolutely. Why did I spend millions of hours on the Sicilian defense? Of course. Okay, cool. Seems like everyone's getting it so far, and we'll just hop into some replays. So this is going to be more of a fun day, of course, because we're not, doing any in-depth analysis. We're going to see what we can get out of these replays. I sort of reviewed them once just to make sure, how long they are, if they're legitimate games, if, I was being trolled or not, which I happily didn't get trolled by any of these replays. So I watched sort of quickly through them once, but I haven't actually gone too in-depth on these replays. So we're just going to watch them together, and we're going to see what we can get out of them. Fix the echo. Is there an echo? Can I get a confirm or deny on an echo? Nope. All right. No echo? Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you. If there is anything, feel free to let me know. Okay. Boo-doo-doo. So replay 1 is going to be my good friend Paz, who is an Australian Night Elf player, but he plays many other races. He's working his way up to being a random player. He's now played Undead, and he's now learning Human. So we're going to watch this replay from Paz's perspective. He's learning Human, and he's up against a also random player, Qubertai, who's, I believe, Scottish. Yeah, he's Scottish. And he's a very strong random player. He's going to be playing Orc in this game, though. Okay? So here we go. And here's our first replay. So we're watching this from Paz's perspective and his opponent, Qubertai. And this is Human versus Orc on Northern Isles. This looks familiar, right? We were doing this last week. So let's see if we can make some connections to last week's show. Voice is a bit low. I can fix that. How's that? How's that? How's that? How's that, everybody? Before we jump into game one. Made it a little bit louder. Better. Better. I put the mic a little closer. I turned up the mic a little bit. All right. Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Okay, so here's game one. Here's game one. So what sorts of things are we looking for in this game? Well, going into it, we have to make some assumptions, right? Because if not, we won't be able to formulate a plan in our head until we literally see what our opponent's strategy is, right? So we have to make some assumptions about the game. So let's make some assumptions if we're Paz. Our assumptions are we're against an orc opponent. He's going to go Farseer. He's going to either build a barracks or not a barracks, which is something we have to scout for. And he's going to harass us with this Farseer, and then he's going to try to get an expansion up on tier 2. And our goal has to be to try to stop that expansion, counter-expand, do some economic damage so he can't even afford to get the expansion up. We have a few options, but those are the assumptions we have to make going into the game, right? And then after we've scouted, after we've seen our opponent's hero, we can start to either confirm or deny those assumptions, and then if we deny them, make new assumptions and come up with a new plan, right? Pretty basic stuff, but important stuff, because if you go into a game not really thinking about anything, I'm just going to do my thing, my opponent's going to do our thing. We were talking about this last week, right? We're playing against a human being, not a computer, not an AI. This is a human being. So they're going to try to trick us, and they're going to try to get a little spicy and do some different stuff. So we have to be ready for that. If we go into a game not thinking about what our opponent's thinking, we're going to lose very quickly. We do know his race. We know that he's an orc player that we're up against. Okay, so starting off, we have 3 farms. If we were following sort of Sock's philosophy with this matchup on this map, we would probably see a tower, and we'd probably see the human creeping this camp. But Paz has a little bit of a different approach. He's going to go 3 farms, no towers so far, and it looks as though he's going to creep this green camp. What's one mistake Paz has made so far? Well, he's not scouting. This footman, a lot of idle time. Does he need this footman to creep just a green camp? Absolutely not. He's going to call some militia, 3 militia in fact. So he's not scouting. What do we miss out on? We miss out on knowing that our orc opponent is teching with a barracks. So scouting, very important, because we need to know the tech timing. Pretty much always. And I would especially say, just from a learning point of view, it's good to scout. In general, just to sort of try to figure out what your opponent's doing based on a scout, because at the beginnings of scouting, when you're a new player, I would say, like a brand new player, you might not actually know what you're looking at when you're scouting, but if you get in the habit of just trying to get something out of it, trying to get any amount of information, no matter how little, out of a scout, I would say that it's, very helpful in the long run. Okay, a couple of wolves being dealt with. And very nicely done. The best way to defend against this wolf pressure is exactly what Paz is doing here. It's literally just to sit in your peasant line and deal with the wolves. Because we're trying to get our tech up. We're trying to not lose any peasants. Paz actually built an extra peasant. He built a 9th lumber peasant. So if he does lose one, not the end of the world, and we're going to have a little bit of extra lumber in the future. I'd expect to see Paz go into Rifle Caster because, again, he's not going to have this strong Archmage early on, so it's going to be hard to deal with that expansion without doing some sort of a big push against our Orc opponent. Okay, tier 2 on the way, Grunt on the way. Worth noting that Qubertai, our Orc player, went for a barracks. What do you have to do with the barracks? Well, you're investing in a much later tech, so you kind of have to get something done on this harass. But he hasn't really gotten anything done on the harass, has he? He hasn't killed any peasants. He hasn't really forced a lot of militia, although he is now. He hasn't put a lot of damage on the Archmage or the Footman, and he invested in a later tech. So not much getting done with that Grunt. We probably could have seen as effective of a harass as we see right now without the Grunt to start with, right? So it's worth knowing that if you're going to commit to this barracks as an Orc player, you need to get something done, or else you might as well just not build it, right? Torn Chieftain on the way out. Very nice macro from Qubertai. Spirit Lodge, again, very nice macro. So far, so good for our Orc opponent. Yes, the MMR of these players is about high diamond to low masters. About 1800 MMR, maybe 1850. But this is, as I said, this is Paz's new off race. So maybe this off race would be about low diamond, maybe 1700. But on their main races, these are both about 1850 players. Level 2. Wolves doing a bit more harass. We did see a blacksmith. Would love to see a Mountain King being built. Mountain King a little bit late, but not the end of the world. As we can see, the 3 farm and building 1 extra peasant, a 9th lumber peasant, did delay it, such as that our Mountain King is pretty much just started and the Torn Chieftain is already out. This is another time, we were talking about this last week, was we want to be scouting, right? Not only at the beginning when this first footman comes out of the barracks, but we want to be scouting around this time because the first footman confirms when the tech of our orc opponent is going to be done, because we know if he has a barracks or not. And then what the second footman does is find out where this Torn Chieftain is going to go. Is he going to go to this camp? We saw Lynn do this first. We saw Focus do this first. So this is definitely a strong camp to creep early. But there's 2 more options. You can creep the green first, or you can go straight to the expansion. If you go straight to the expansion, this means that the Orcs expansion is going to be going up much earlier than if he would have crept this first. So there's some very important information that Paz is missing out on this game, just because he's not simply sending a footman to the other base, and he definitely has footmen to spare. Torn Chieftain, 2 wolves, gonna creep this expansion. I would expect to see a peon coming. Needs a little bit more gold. Paz is going to... It looks like he's going to start creeping. Not really a huge reason to start creeping this with your Archmage yet, because the level 3 isn't going to get anything done at this point, because it's going to take him a while to get level 3, and the Mountain King needs to get this experience, so he should wait for the Mountain King before he starts his camp. Torn Chieftain, level 2. Peon here. So around, we talked about 6 minutes being about the earliest an orc can get an expansion last week. So this is pretty close to the earliest expansion possible. Mountain King coming out. The Archmage stole a bit of that experience. That's pretty crucial. Farseer actually got that last hit as well. So this is a very important play for Qubertai. Surround. Even if this Farseer gets surround, this is still perfect for the orc, but he gets away either way, because this is all delay, and we know how early this expansion is, so this is all delay, and the Torn Chieftain in the meantime is going to be very close to level 3, and the Mountain King, not even level 2 yet. And there's so many low footmen as well, right? So this, look at all the delay, look at all the delay. And we know that if we're committing to this Riflecaster army, we are planning to do a push eventually. We're planning to push this expansion and try to get either a cancel or a kill or win a fight. We're not planning to just creep the map all day, right? We're trying to hit a timing, and that timing's around 8.5 minutes, 9 minutes. We want level 3 Mountain King and to have our strong fighting army. But Qubertai's already almost level 3. He's going to come across the map, and he's going to do what Lynn did in that 3rd replay last week. He's going to delay us a whole bunch. Level 3, kills a rifle, Zeppelin picked up, and there's not a lot of anti-air, so the Zeppelin could save, on paper, every single unit, if we're Paz. What I'd like to see Qubertai do right now is not overcommit to this fight, because he's doing enough already by just delaying. Right? And he is going to back off a bit. 1 grunt gets left behind, stomp. Maybe a surround. This is going to be a town portal. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, and he waits to the last second. This is a very common mistake we see people make, where they wait to the last second to town portal because they're trying to get as much value out as they can, but really not a lot of value gained by losing that much HP on your Archmage, and now you're sort of forced into the back of your base. How could this have been avoided? This bad creep jack? Well, for one, generally you'll see human players creep this first with militia, and that'll be guaranteed level 2. And then they'll be able to come over here and creep this much more safely because they'll have more army, And the Archmage will ideally be scouting at the same time. But you have to be a little bit ballsy in front of the Farseer. Now we're in a position where we have no Town Portal. We have no Mountain King level 3. The expansion is going to be finished, as it is finished already. We know about it. But we're really not in a position to fight. And this is because our opponents made some really good plays, and we were a little bit too cautious with our creeping. And the Zeppelin is just chilling. Not much could have been gained from it so far. It could have saved our Archmage earlier. So a little bit of a null investment at this point, and null investments are very important in this situation because we were trying to hit a timing, and that timing was 30 seconds ago. Can we still hit the timing? I would say there's still a, we could still maybe win a fight, but we do need a mana potion on our Mountain King. Crucially, we talked about that last week. You need that to take this fight early on. Wand of the Wind's going to help. Heal Scroll's going to help. And our opponent doesn't have any Heal Scrolls. He has a Potion of Invulnerability, but he also has a very strong army. And +1 grunts. Would like to see even more upgrades. We're getting reinforced defenses. Would like to see more upgrades, get in the bestiary, probably a couple of Kodos in the future. And this is sort of what starts to happen when the Orc is on 2-base economy for a long time. They start to get a lot of upgrades. They start to get Kodos out. They start to get lots of Heal Scrolls. And it becomes very hard to fight with just Riflecaster. And see, we got to go back for our mana pot now because we forgot it earlier when the shop was up. We could have gotten it before we even crept this. We could have gotten it with just the Archmage. But now, when's our timing supposed to be ready? 8 minutes, 30 seconds. We're 2 minutes late. Let's see how much mining that's translated into. About 1,000 gold, right? Close to 1,000 gold. That's 1 minute and 40 seconds of mining in this expansion. There's the Zeppelin. We're going to use it now. But it's already 59 supply Orc. Could we win a fight still? Well, we have 2 mana pots. We have a decent army. We're a little bit down on supply. Could we win a fight? I would say our time is dwindling. And also, our opponent's making a very nice play yet again. And it's just going to hit. As soon as he knows the timing is coming across the map, he's just going to hit the main base. And there's a tower, there's a burrow. We have lumber to repair. And look at this, lightning shield into the main base. Could even commit into the main base. We have a town portal to get back. And yeah, we're going to lose some stuff here for the Orc player, but we're going to kill a whole lot more in the main base. And 1 base against 0 will favor us just as much as 2 bases against 1. Right? So this is a very nice play. Gonna TP back home, not to the expansion, where he has a Kodo, 2 grunts, and a shaman waiting. Probably mana pot. There's the mana pot in the Torn Chieftain. And now it's 65 against 49 supply. This is the first replay, yep. Speed scrolling in. Nice Wand of the Wind. What this Wand of the Wind did was not only get that Torn Chieftain in the air, it also canceled the speed scroll because you had to purge the Wand of the Wind. So that was a very nice Wand of the Wind. I would like to see the next one used as soon as the Torn Chieftain gets close, right? Or even once the Torn Chieftain gets close in here, about to get a big stomp, I'd like to see a Stormbolt. When that Stormbolt runs out, I would like to see Wand of the Wind immediately again. After you Wand of the Wind, split your casters, get as much damage in as possible, and maybe you can win this fight. You have lots of mana on your Mountain King. You just have to keep it alive for long enough. You have a Zeppelin to save it, and there's not a lot of anti-air except for the Shamans and the Farseer. I would say this is a winnable fight, despite being down so much supply, if you play it perfectly, because the items are there. You have enough claps. Is there heal scrolls? There's no heal scrolls. If there was 1, 2 heal scrolls on our Orc opponent, I would say he guaranteed wins this fight, but there's still definitely a chance if we do this perfectly. So first Wand of the Wind has been used very nicely to stop the speed scroll. I'd like to wait till the Torn Chieftain, bolt, recyclone, split casters, try to keep our Mountain King alive. Let's see what happens. Another Wand of the Wind very prematurely. Not a lot of utility there because you're not stopping a stomp. And now, nice bolt. See, that's what he could have done, and then follow it up with a Wand of the Wind right there. Mountain King took a lot of damage. Heal Scroll on our end used. Kodo 8. A lot of casters out of position, but these fights get very chaotic. And we see so many grunts are falling. So many grunts are falling, but we've lost a few too many rifles at this point, I would say. But it's still very close. Mountain King gets stomped. Again, we took a little bit too much damage early on our Mountain King. But still, look at the supplies. 35 against 58, but this does not look like a huge supply differential, right? We have a lot of rifles, and we've killed most of the grunts. A lot of this supply is in Kodos and Shamans, but the expansion's still mining. And now since if the Mountain King was still alive and healthy, he would be clapping away, killing everything. And maybe we can squeak by breaking this expansion.
A town is under siege.
But now it's going to be very difficult. We might be able to break the burrow. We see we've even forced the orc back despite him mining how much? 2,400 gold, and killing our Mountain King in that fight. And now, you know, we have no town portal. We're killing some peons, but the orc is coming back with a big army, a big supply advantage, and it's probably only a matter of time. Nice clap. We see how effective these claps are, right? If we only have a little bit better at the beginning of the fight, we see how effective it is. Because our, you know, I would love to see the orc have bought more heal scrolls, but there was one heal scroll stolen away, of course. Now GG's probably going to be called. The Torn Chieftain's low, but don't fret. There's a stomp, there's a heal salve. There's no bolt. And the Mountain King falls. Alright. Cool. Cool. So a very, very good game from Qubertai. A very clean game. A very clean game. Thank you, Sonic. Okay, so what can we improve on there? Well, the orc played very well. Somebody pointed out in the chat that Paz didn't have a town portal, so the orc could have actually just committed to the main base when Paz was at the expansion. A fair point. Maybe the biggest mistake of this game. I think other than that, the orc played very well. But yeah, scouting to start with, of course, because you don't know the expansion timing, you don't know the tech timing, because maybe if Paz, our human player here, knew how early that expansion was, knew that it was up right at 6 minutes, we could have maybe rushed the Mountain King to level 3, because that's required with this rifle timing, right? You need level 3 Mountain King, you need a potion of mana. And you can have all that, as Sock showed us last week, at 8.5 minutes, right when the expansion goes up. Brownie420, thanks for the sub, man. So rushing that Mountain King, I would say, really it comes down to the creep route that we chose for the Mountain King. Going for that Tuskar, and the Farseer was right there waiting for us, and then we got a little bit scared. And we didn't commit to the creeping right away. And then we chased the Farseer, going for bolt surrounds, when normally what you should do is you should just have one priest on your Archmage, summon a water elemental, and just auto-attack the Farseer until it runs away. If the wolves go in to try to do damage on your rifles, you just kill them, and that's more experience for your Mountain King. But being scared with the creeping, not the best creep route, and, you know, then just delays, and you end up being 2 minutes late for your timing, and the fight is still relatively close, but, you know, it's still a bit too late. So clean up the timings, have a little bit of a better creep route, better scouting. A lot of things to work on, but overall the general idea is there. Okay, cool. So there's replay 1. Thank you for sending that in, Paz. Appreciate it. So the next replay we have is gold rated 1,300 MMR players. This is PakiTo versus EWorm. PakiTo sent this in. I believe he's a Brazilian player. Brazilian human player. And we're going to see him play against another gold player, an undead on Amazonia. Here we go. And some of these replays we're going to have to do with Fog of War off because they're just not an observer. They're ladder games. They're talking about ping. And we're going to talk about human versus undead on Amazonia. So, a very interesting map. A map that, in the past, human players used to veto all the time. I, still think that in this matchup, humans probably dislike it, but there's been a new trick found. Do you guys know what that is? Well, I'll tell you. The trick is, Footman goes to the expansion, you run right here, you pull the creeps out. What do you do when you pull the creeps? Well, the trappers don't trap you, the rock golem doesn't throw his boulder, and the mud golems don't slow you. So it's a lot easier to creep the expansion early on if you do this Footman pull that wasn't available in the past because we didn't know about it or we didn't do it. So the expansion is easier than it once was on this map, but it's still a very difficult map for human against undead. But yeah, Agent has a very good point that in the Crypt Lord meta, undeads don't like Crypt Lording on this map because, again, the expansion is very difficult to creep. So humans tend to like it more because they can, 1, do this Footman pull, and they can, 2, not have to worry so much about Crypt Lord. So we'll see if our human player goes for this expansion or not, and if he does, if he goes for that Footman pull or not. Our undead opponent, EWorm, going for Death Knight, so no Crypt Lord, as we just pointed out. Graveyard, so this is a Ted Fiends build. Ted Fiends, and he's going to get skeletons. Generally what undeads do, well, they'll creep this whole camp, or they'll creep this whole camp. They'll send some skeletons into the main base while creepjacking the human at the expansion. And this is against an expansion, but we'll see what our human friend here, PakiTo, does. It's creeping. Nicely waiting for the purge and summon the water elemental. Perfectly done so far. Not getting infeed. Very good creeping. Very good creeping. 2 farms. No 3rd farm yet, so is this attack? 1 Footman going in the middle. One thing I'd like to point out as well is when we're learning from replays like this, it's not very useful to point out mechanical problems or clear mistakes, micro issues, if he messes up his micro, although we can learn about how to micro from a top-down point of view, we have to put our dryads on the, on the Kodos because they're unarmored. Stuff like that. Because that's stuff that is literally, fact in how you should micro. You should micro with armor types. You should position in this way. But we can learn about that. But, when there's mechanical issues, when there's slip-ups, when people miss surrounds, it's not really worth pointing out. Because people make mistakes. Pro players make mistakes. So, we're not going to talk too much about the clear issues, right? We're going to talk about the overarching issues and strategy and stuff like that, right? Here we go. Okay, so PakiTo, a little bit of a miss rally, but he had the right idea. He was trying to scout. And what was he trying to scout for? Well, is there a Crypt Lord? Is there a Death Knight? If there is a Death Knight, is he harassing me? Gonna get level 2 with some decent creeping so far. Tech from our undead opponent. Undead is coming straight across to harass. He actually tries to coil the little guy, but doesn't get it. So we're in a very good position here, and I would imagine we're teching. Okay, we're teching. So this is a little bit of a different strategy from the expansion that I thought we were going to see. So this will be 1 base rifle caster. And how are we supposed to play this? There's a couple ways. So regardless of the 2 different ways that you can play this, what I'd like to see PakiTo do now is, 1, yeah, he's going in for a little bit of harassment. He's going to be able to cancel the Ziggurat, maybe even kill a couple Acolytes, which is very good. But generally, you'll prioritize getting level 3 Archmage. Because then you can pressure when you're both on tier 2, and you can also support your Mountain King in getting level 3. So this harassment is good. It's a good timing. You're canceling a Zig. You're going to kill an Acolyte, probably. But I think you could even try to creep level 3 Archmage, which is hard on this map, but you have these small camps. You have these camps in the middle. But once the Mountain King is out, your goal should be to obviously get Mountain King level 3, right? Because you need level 2 Stormbolt if your opponent has level 2 Coil, or else it's going to be very difficult to kill units. And you should get level 3 Mountain King in such a way when your tier 2 is done that you're taking camps away aggressively from the undead because they can't really deal with Stormbolt before they have level 2 coil themselves. So taking this camp away, if you can, it would be great if you could take away the shop. Gonna be forced to probably Town Portal out. Ooh, there's no coil, but it is gonna be a Town Portal. Acolyte went down. 2 Acolytes, in fact, and a Ziggurat cancel. Is that worth it? Is that worth it? For the Town Portal, I think 1 Footman fell. Certainly worth it, right? Certainly worth it. Could we have done something better with our time? Maybe. Level 3 Archmage, possibly, which is very easy on this map. If we take this camp and then this camp, that will be level 3 Archmage. And then there's still lots of camps to take aggressively. If we are forced back, we can take this. We can take this. If we're creeping aggressively, we can take this. And this, right? Lots of camps to choose from early tier 2. Bert Smiler, thank you for the sub. Tier 2 finishes. Get in the Arcane Vault Tower. Decent macro so far. Rifle coming out. Mountain King coming out. Our opponent, tier 2 is finished. Lich on the way. Fiend's on the way. He's getting his creeping. And now we're going to get Archmage level 3, which I think is on time. But if we had it earlier, we could have been maybe pressuring this Death Knight a bit, right? Lumber Mill. And we'll see. So there's now 2 options now that we're at tier 2. We can do a tier 2 expansion, sort of the Thorzane style of things, where we get about 2 or 3 rifles, maybe a priest, and we come straight over and creep this expansion and tier 2 expand when we have the power spike of having the Mountain King, having these rifles, which we've talked about in Human vs. Orc, where they're very strong around the 7-minute, 8.5-minute mark. Regardless of matchup, they're very strong. Except for maybe Human Mirror, but every other matchup, right? So we have the map control, we have the strong army, we have the strong secondary hero, where we can use that map control to get an expansion. Another thing we can do with this army is we can go tier 3. And get a Paladin, get Inner Fire, you know, maybe even get a couple of Knights, but generally you don't. What you can do is you can get 3-0 rifles, which are pretty strong with Inner Fire. So there's, you know, tier 3 is an option, which we're actually going to see, or a tier 2 expansion. Both are viable. I prefer the tier 2 expansion, personally. Because you can get in these sort of situations when you're playing one base against an undead where the whole map gets crept out. And then the undead just sits in their base and waits till they're 80 supply. And the undead at 80 supply with abominations, with maybe a Criplord third, with 3/3 heroes, it becomes very hard for the human if they don't have some sort of strong tier 3 army. Which if you're on one base, you're going to be stuck on just rifles, pretty much. So it'll be very strong when you're early tier 3, you know, early tier 2. You have power spikes, but eventually if you're both just sitting in your bases and the map is crept out, it can be very difficult for you. Undead is pressuring, although I'd love to see him try to get level 3 Death Knight right now. Okay, bolting. Again, we're chasing the Death Knight, similar to what we saw last game, you know, getting hungry for those bolt surrounds. We're maybe going to be able to get the Lich, but we should really be prioritizing level 3 Mountain King, and now that we're forcing the undead back, we have a lot of space to creep in his face. Take this. Take this, finish off this camp, and there's, you know, very limited spots for the undead to go to. He's going to have to run here, and then we can creep jack him. But now we're going to get level 2. Our Archmage taking a lot of damage. There is a coil. There's no Nova. Nice bolt. Tier 3, how soon? One other thing, actually I didn't notice this. Arcane Sanctum very late. We would love to have a priest right now, wouldn't we? We would love to have a priest. Where can you send replays? Asked someone in the chat. Carson at backtowarcraft.com. You can also join the Back to Warcraft Discord if you go to backtowarcraft.com. And you can, there's a TheoryCraft channel in the Discord. Or you can tweet them at me, at CarsonC, with 3 N's. Okay, so now, this Arcane Sanctum, I would say, is objectively a mistake. You want earlier priests, and you also want earlier adepts, so now that we've hit tier 3, we can get master training on our priests that we already have out. So I would say this is a clear mistake, something to fix. Get this Sanctum immediately at tier 2. We had the lumber, we had the gold. We just needed that earlier. Another mistake strategically, as we get some of the worst items I've ever seen in my life. Holy Jesus. All right, well, at least he's going to live. Another thing I'd like to see is being more aggressive. Because as I said earlier, if we both just creep the map, if the undead just creeps his side and I as the human just creep my side, we're both on one base, eventually the undead is just going to have a stronger army, because undead on one base against human on one base gets the stronger late game 80 supply army. That's just how the matchup works if we don't have an expansion as a human. So what can we do on one base to counteract that? Well, we have to be aggressive, we have to deny these hero levels, and we have to, you know, get high hero levels ourselves. But right now, what PakiTo is doing is he's creeping very passively. And he's allowed the undead to pretty much gobble up his whole side of the map. Dark Ranger. Paladin's out. We can get Orb and Staff, which we do have, which is another bonus of having that tier 3. But we just see how late we are on Priest production now. Which could hurt, but we do have a Paladin out now as well.
Our forces are under attack.
There's a plane. Shout out to the pilot for the plane. And want a lightning shield scroll the beast. Okay. We're getting creep jack, but this is definitely a winnable fight. If ever we can win a fight, it should be right now with Bolt level 2. Focusing, because we didn't check items. We didn't check he had Potion of Greater Heal, which is very important to check very quickly. I would say it's even especially important against undead. No staff used. Again, mechanical issues. Not too important. Probably going to go for the DK again, and we are. Frost Armor's pretty nice, and Town Portal out. But our opponent got a rifle and a paladin there. And a footman at the end. For just a TP and a Potion of Greater Heal, so. Very good for our opponent. A very good creep jack. Could we have microed it a bit better? We could have saved the paladin, and we could have maybe focused the Death Knight less, and in return gotten some fiends. Because if we focus the Fiend down, then Stormbolt, the coil can't always save it. That's the strength of having level 2 Stormbolt early, right? Creeping aggressively now. This is the first sort of aggressive camp we've taken. We can see this Bash Cobalt camp is still on the map. And this is the highest priority as an aggressive camp to take away if you have map control early on. Right? And it's still on the map, both players. I bet the undead even assumes that PakiTo has taken it already. Do we want shops at the item, or at the items at the shop? Here, I would say heal scroll, probably pretty important. We have staff, so maybe invuln's not something we want to invest into on one base. Although it's good, but there's a lot of things we would rather invest into. 3-0 rifles. Do we have inner fire yet? We don't even have adept training on our priests. And not only, I think this is a misconception a lot of newer players have as our opponent's creeping the red. See what item he gets. A misconception newer players have, I think, very good item for our opponent, is that when you get adept and master training on your casters, it just gives you the ability, right? It just gives you dispel, it just gives you inner fire, but it also gives you more mana regen and more health and more mana. It's very good. Why is more health important against undead? Because Coil Nova against your priests. So getting adept training, which we have now, master training as well should be on the way, is very important. Now the Cobalt's being taken by our opponent. He's got very strong heroes. I would say our opponent is in a good position because he's dragged the game out long enough. EWorm also has a lot of gold. He could break upkeep, but I think it's good to bank in these one base situations. We get Khadgar's, the worst item we could possibly get there, but level 4 Mountain King. And we have Clap Stormbolt, and Clap's very good. A decent silence, although it doesn't hit the Mountain King. Okay, maybe not a decent silence. But we have the double aura, remember. We have the movement speed. We can kite all day if we're the undead. And is there any camps left on the map? Is there any? Is there any? There's a Zergling. I see a Zergling, but I don't see any other. I see a villager. I don't see any creeps, though. I see a pack horse. Are there any creeps left? Where are the creeps? Where are the creeps? And what did I say earlier? When it gets into these stalematey positions, if the undead... Now, this is up to the undead here. If he just sits in his base, it's going to be very hard for us to break the base. And what we can do, the undead's already banking. Just wait until we're 80 supply with abominations, with disease cloud, with upgrades, with lots of fiends, with heal scrolls against the clap. And is this rifle army going to be able to deal with that? No. But instead, the undead is going kind of aggressive, but he does have a town portal, so maybe he can do some economic damage and get out. But I wouldn't advise the undead right now to take a fight unless PakiTo goes for an expansion. Right? So this would be a bad fight for the undead. Because he can just wait. He's banking, he can just wait. There's nothing he gains from taking this fight unless he's absolutely confident he can win it. Because this is the best fight PakiTo's going to get. Because this is pre-60, 70, 80 supply. He's got good hero levels, but like the best level he can get past this is like level 5 Mountain King, level 3 Paladin, which is going to take a lot of unit kills to get there now that there's no creeps. And we're losing Fiends. Orb of Fire, doing what Orb of Fire does. Another Fiend going to fall. Another nice coil. There's another Stormbolt, though. And mana for the human, of course, cheaper with level 2 Brilliance Aura. TheoryCraft 3 subscribing. What's up, brother? And see, if this undead realized that there was no creeps left on the map, which he maybe could have, and that there was no expansion from the human, although I think he's going for one now. There's a peasant going there. He could have just sat in his base, wait till you're 80 supply, wait till you have disease cloud on your abominations, and the human can't really push in at that point because you know, we can get a couple of towers, we have mana pots, we have heal scrolls, but now we've lost a couple fiends, we've used a lot of coils, although our mana is pretty good, and now the human has a huge supply, not a huge supply, 3 supply lead, but he's got inner fire on everything, he's got good hero levels. We're really not at that 80 supply we should be with our 1,300 gold that we've banked. And now PakiTo's gonna destroy him. Paladin, possibly gonna fall. Not falling, and really nice bringing the one priest back. Really nice. So there's not a supply advantage, but it's a hard fight to win because 50 supply human against 50 supply undead, the human's favored because the heroes are stronger, but 80 supply undead against 80 supply human, if they're on Rifle Caster, is much stronger. So what should the undead have done? He should have waited. He shouldn't have taken this fight at the base. PakiTo should build this with 5 peasants. Another little macro error. The Lich gonna fall, and PakiTo looks like he's gonna take this one. A very nice game, but not without places to improve that we can certainly talk about. I think EWorm is calling himself an easy undead, so not BM here. Just saying that he is easy. That he is easy. And PakiTo takes it. PakiTo takes it. Very nice. Very nicely done. So what are some things to improve upon? Well, I think, one, you could try going for that expansion more on Amazonia. I would say learn that pull and then mix it up, because it's not good to just have one strategy. So if you're playing one base rifle caster against undead every time, it'll become very predictable. People will learn how to counter it, and you'll start to lose games because they'll be hard countering you. So I would say learn how to pull that camp and go for an expansion on Amazonia, and then do both strats. Do your one base strat, do your two base strat, and you're good to go. And then also what I would recommend with that rifle caster strategy, get an earlier Arcane Sanctum, and then maybe mix up going tier 3 or going for a tier 2 expansion, right? So again, you have a mix up at the beginning of the game and you have a mix up at tier 2, and mixing it up makes your opponent have to change their plan, which we've talked about so much, right? So anything else? Anything else? No, I think you played pretty well. And of course, you have to try to take camps aggressively if you're playing rifle caster. That's very important, is to take camps aggressively, not let the undead creep, because we talked about if the undead actually played that late game a little bit better, regardless of micro, regardless of mechanics, I think there's no way we can really win, because we can't break the main base and they just wait till they're 80 supply and then attack us, and we probably lose that fight. So there's a world in which EWorm actually wins that game if he just makes a couple less mistakes towards the tail end. Make sense? All right. Thank you. Thank you, PakiTo, for the replay. All right. Okay. Now we have a legendary game. So this is what is this? A diamond game? Yeah. A diamond game. Yeah, it's a solidly diamond. So we're going to see our old friend Qubertai again from the first replay. But not from his point of view. We're going to watch it from our good friend Sythren's point of view. A legend. A Night Elf player. A good friend of mine who submitted a replay. And it is going to be a Night Elf against Human. Qubertai, being a very strong random player, is going to be playing Human in this replay. And our friend Sythren is going to be playing Night Elf. All right. So both these players about diamond. You know, it's hard to say with players who play random, you know, what all their races are. I think Qubertai is an undead main. I've never seen him play human, but I would imagine it's around at least a diamond level because we saw how strong his orc was earlier. And the reason we're seeing a couple of this guy's replays, Qubertai, is because he plays in GNL quite a bit and he practices with a lot of people. He's a, you know, you could say a community practice partner. But we're going to watch it from the Night Elf's point of view. Because we're going to try, you know, I didn't get the most race variety today, but I was trying to get some race variety, so I wanted to do a Night Elf point of view replay. So, what are we seeing? What are we seeing? Who can guess? Who can guess in the chat? What strategy are we seeing from our good friend Sythren? It's a type of build that is very common recently, actually, and in the past. What build are we seeing? Mass Archer, BM. OC says the neutral build order is wrong to begin with. You know, that's easy stuff to learn. It's easy stuff to learn. It's easy. Arc, it's easy to learn the build order, all right? All right? They're on YouTube. You can watch a replay. It's simple. It's simple. It's simple. You know, we're not talking about no build order specifics today, all right? We're talking about strategy. Talking about strategy today. But yes, there is some improvements to be made on the basic build order. But the build order we're seeing, most likely going to be a Beastmaster. A Tavern Hero build. And then there's a couple of options. I would say there's about 3 options if we're assuming this will be a Beastmaster, which it could be, you know. It could be Dark Ranger, it could be other things, but most likely a Beastmaster. What are the 3 options? What are the 3 options? Well, if our opponent expands early, we can go for an all-in against the expansion, right? Mass Huntress, AP push, lots of mercs, as we see we are going for this mercenary camp first. You know, we can all in it. We can all in it with APs, all that good stuff. What else can we do? We can get a counter expansion against our opponent's expansion and try to get tier 2, try to get Dryads, Bears, Mountain Giants. You know, the tier 2, tier 3 units. So there's a second option, a counter expand. Third option would be to play one base, not all inning, going tier 3, and just playing a very, you might say, lame style. Lots of hit and runs, lots of putting summons into the main base and attacking what may be an expansion. Lots of economic damage. Right? But we'll see. We'll see if our opponent's going to expand or play one base, but that's what I expect to see in this game. And if it's not a Beastmaster, well then we'll talk about something else. So 3 options. We'll see what Sythren decides, or we'll see if he's come up with a 4th idea himself. All right. Ancient War coming up. For those of you wondering, the build order, he should have a second Moonwell going up already. That should be the build order. But the second Moonwell is going up right now. 4th idea, Cry in a Corner. Arc RS, Legend. Yes, as a Night Elf player. Lots of tiers. Archer coming out. Second Archer on the way out. Ba-boom, boom, 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 boom. Archmage for Qubertai. 3rd farm. Footman. Gonna pull the mercenary camp. Will we see a 4th farm? If we see a 4th farm, we'll know it's an expansion. If we don't, we maybe have to get ready for some sort of a rifle timing. Wisp, go into the tavern. Second Archer out. 3rd Archer on the way. Beastmaster. See, we have to wait for this moon well before the Beastmaster pops out, and our opponent's already creeping, which is why we want the second well earlier, and we can afford it if we have one on lumber earlier. But boom, boom, there's a Beastmaster. 3 archers, Ancient War, uprooting. So this leaves us open to a couple of things. If we get a lot of mercs, we can do this sort of all-in style, but we'll see if we see a tech or an expansion or lots of mercenaries purchased, or all 3 of them. Night Elf players sometimes do all 3 of those things. Our opponent getting a Shadow Priest early, pretty much good in all scenarios. Against a Warden, it's good for the healing. Against Keeper or Beastmaster, as we're seeing, is good for the Dispel. Against Demon Hunter, cry in a corner, as Ark says. Double Agility Tome, tears, tears, tears. Robe of the Magi, good. Are we going to see a tech, or are we going to see a Huntress Hall? We're seeing a tech. Okay, so what I'd expect to see is either an expansion go up behind some light pressure against the human who is expanding. Without a 4th farm, there's a 4th farm. Good, so it will be an expansion. Some light pressure against the peasants once we hit level 3. And then a counter expansion behind it. What I would say that is ideal.
A player's forces are under attack.
Expansion coming up. Not quite going to get level 3 here. Mercenaries being picked up. Once we hit level 3 on this Beastmaster, you guys are going to be amazed how good this level 2 bear is. This level 2 bear is pretty much all you need. It's very strong. It's very, very strong. And this will be our level 3. We're going to be able to get some moon juice, and we're going to be able to go to the expansion right away. Level 3. Level 2 bear. I hope it is level 2 bear indeed. What do I want to see out of Sythren now? What do I want to see? I want to see lots of damage, but what I don't want to see is an overcommitment to a fight. Right? I want to see a focus on economic damage because we are on 1 base against 2 base soon enough. I want to see a focus on economic damage and a focus on not just trading all of our units out, just moving into the footmen and mercenaries. Because what am I doing? I'm just trading units. I'm not actually dealing with this 2 base economy. So I lose in the long run. So I'd like to see these bears go and deal with the peasants and delay with the archers and the berserker. Just leave the bear here. Just leave the bear here doing damage. And see, Qubertai chasing the berserker, he's chasing the archers. We could run away, leave the bear here, leave the quill here, kill all those peasants, and then do it all over again. Don't commit to a fight. What are we doing, Sythren? We're committing to a fight. We're trying to trade units. Why shouldn't we trade units? Because he's on 2 base economy. But the bears, of course, are extremely good. But again, all these peasants could be dead if the bears were in there. Overcommitting. Overcommitting when we should be, as I said earlier, just play lame. Just be a lame-o. Just be a full lame-o. You got a Beastmaster, you're 1 base against 2. You're not all-inning, you're teching. Lures will come up soon, but just be a lame-o. Now there's going to be an Arcane Tower going up. Now we have no units, no archers, no berserkers, no priests to sort of distract our human opponent while we go for peasants. Now all we have to do is just fully commit into either the army or harassment, and what's the human going to be able to do? He's going to be able to just deal with the harass. Going to get the priest. Qubertai, being a very good player, is going to lock in the surround. What a legend. Again, what do I want to see now? Don't town portal out super late. Don't show us how good your reflexes are. Just get out of there. He cancels the farm. Good, now just get out of there. Because we're on moon juice, right? We don't have bears yet for rejuvenation. Our lords aren't even up yet. So just get out of there. Sythren a little bit late on the town portal, but... So what could we have done better here? What could we have done better here? Well, we took a fight. We essentially took a fight when the armies were even. He had about 5 footmen and a couple mercs. We had about 3 archers, a couple mercs, and the summons to boot. So, it was about even. He could have called militia if he got in danger. What should we have done? Delay with the units, harass with the summons. Say it with me. Delay with the units, harass with the summons. Okay, you see this? All these peasants could be dead, and we could just be doing ring around the rosy if The human player commits to defend his expansion. We go into the main base. We bring our Beastmaster up here. We pop another bear in there. We start killing these peasants. There's no arcane tower. Play like a lame-o. Play like a full lame-o. And then we do that until we either counter-expand, build a counter-expansion, or we get lots of units up, and we've done so much damage that it's essentially been one base the whole time. And we're getting so much experience. We're going to be level 5 soon if we kill a bunch of peasants. Just be a full lame-o. Be a full lame-o. So not lame enough. Not lame enough. Focusing too much on fights, too much on micro, and not enough on strategic little plays that we could make. Right? It's more play-based than, you know, straight-up mechanical play. Right? Gonna creep a bit more. It's hard to be a lame-o now, although we could maybe cancel these towers, but we see Qubertai fully aware that we want to be a lame-o. He's going to get 3 towers up. He's going to block it. A very nice SimCity. Can even put a farm there. In the main base. Still no towers. Still no towers. That's something we should also be scouting for. Is there towers in the main base? Can we be a lame-o there in the main base? Our gold is high. Our gold is very high, but our tier 3 is on the way. Would love to see a couple of dryads. What are dryads good for? Well, they deal with the water elementals. You can chase down units. You can get more experience on your Beastmaster. Once you hit level 5 Beastmaster, we talked about this base being blocked earlier and you having to pop the bear in. You could just blink in there all day. You just constantly send bears in here, blink in, kill the peasants, double arcane tower. Takes forever to kill them still. Beastmaster good on all races, or only Night Elf human sometimes does it. Against Orc. Back in the day, much more common than it is today, but pretty much just Night Elf. But Night Elf does it against Undead sometimes. They do it against Orc sometimes. They mostly do it against human, though. And we're seeing the effectiveness right now of how good these bears are. He's only got a Beastmaster pretty much right now. And he's killing kind of all the footmen. There's a bear. No Dispel for the reju. Look how good the Beastmaster is. Look how good. Look how good. And now we're completely safe if we're the human player. If we're Qubertai, we're completely safe. We're about to have a 3rd tower here. The summons could still come in and try to do some harassment, but they really wouldn't do as much as they would previously. So now we're just literally playing 1 base against 2 and hoping to win somehow. Whereas we had enough pressure early to distract long enough to get a Tree of Life up, we also had enough pressure early to deny this expansion from really mining much. But we kind of chose to do neither. We kind of chose to just take a fight, and, well, we traded evenly in the fight. But trading evenly when your opponent's on 2 base, you know, is not what we should be focusing on doing. Right? Heal Ward's going to help. Bit slot starved, a little bit, but we sell an item, we get the orb. Still a chance for good old Sythren here. Still a chance. How is there a chance? Well, he's got a level 5 Beastmaster. He's got the tech advantage. He's indeed tier 3, and our opponent is just now getting his 1st Arcane Sanctum up. Not even Dispel yet. 2nd Arcane Sanctum. So although we're not in a great spot, we could still win a fight and break these towers. These towers are not something we should be afraid of. We can kill them if given an opportunity. So I would love to see, if our opponent gives us any opportunity, us to just immediately break these towers. Gonna cancel the Sanctum, that's good. Our opponent can't win a fight. Look at these bears. Look at these bears. 2 Dryads, Water Elemental's useless. Blinking. Are we gonna overcommit when we could break the towers right now?
A player's forces are under attack.
It looks as though we're overcommitting when what should we be doing? Just break the towers. And even though we're probably not going to be able to kill the expansion after we break the towers, if we kill both these guard towers, if we kill this guard tower and an arcane tower, what can we do then? Well, we can take a fight while sending summons in and deal with that expansion. So again, we're not being lame enough. We're not realizing the weak spot of our opponent. What's the weak spot? Well, he has 2 positions we can attack, and the peasants are just all going to die to our summons. No town portal. Qubertai smartly recognizes there's no town portal and just going to go into the main base. There is a bear blinking in, but it's hard when there's 3 towers. It's hard when there's 3 towers, as I pointed out earlier. Shop gonna fall again. And we gotta go back home. Although this army is not scary, we still have to defend our buildings. Because we're 1 base, and he is 2. Going back home. And now it's slowly starting to slip out of our hands, right? Because although we dealt with the Arcane Sanctums, our opponent has so much economy that, you know, he can get some more lumber. He can start getting them up. He's going to get Tri-Hero soon. I'm just going to town portal out because he can afford it. Now can probably even creep this, our human. Breaking upkeep is Qubertai. Qubertai. Good. Just want to make sure I'm not doing a 3-hour stream and saying his name wrong for 3 hours straight. You know what I mean. Okay, our army is good still, Sythren. Our army's still good. What can we still do? We can still try to break these towers, but it's slipping out of our hands. We've had about a 3 to 4 minute window where we could have done some serious damage and probably brought the game back to 1 base, 1 base. Because we've had the stronger army for so long. We've had the stronger army probably the whole game. Honestly, yeah, probably the whole game we've had the stronger army. We just didn't utilize it correctly. But still a chance. Still a chance. Summons. Shop gonna fall. Bear is gonna kill the shop. Hard to break the towers because the SimCity is so nice, but we can't kill the Sanctums. If we kill the Sanctums, you can't build units. If you can't build units, you don't have an army. If you don't have an army, you can't defend your buildings, and if you lose all your buildings, you get eliminated from the game. So not a bad play from Sythren. And we're still in a position to win the fight, but the Blizzard retrain on top of level 3 Blizzard is really strong. And now what could we do? Well, we could just go into the main base. We could just go straight to the main base. He TP'd home. He TP'd home. Why not just go into the main base? Now we have an ultimate. There's 1 Stormbolt left on the Mountain King. So if we force 1 more Stormbolt out, we could use the ultimate. But right now we're kind of overcommitting when we could just go to the main base. Because he has 2 points to defend, Qubertai. Not just 1. And if he just had 1, there'd be no point for us to attack. We could just creep. Or stop him from creeping. Will we see the ultimate? We're a little low on mana. Oh, we did see the ultimate, didn't we? Which got Stormbolted. Invuln being used. Heal ward, but we've overcommitted here now. We've overcommitted. The ultimate almost killed a few towers. Almost going to kill a knight. We're still in a position where we can win a fight, right? We're still in a position, but with the towers it's difficult. What are we doing back at home? We're certainly not expanding. We are going into Mountain Giant upgrades. And we can get some more mana, and we're almost level 7 Beastmaster, and that's pretty strong. It's pretty strong. Especially before this Mountain King and this Paladin get level 3 apiece, right? Again, trying to get Arcane Sanctums up. And we see this is probably the most lame-o thing you've done, Sythren. But you weren't lame-o enough. But we see how effective killing the tech buildings have been, right? They've helped out quite a bit this game. That's probably what kept you in the game. But that's kind of the only hit-and-runny stuff you've done is just run up, kill the Sanctums. You could have done more. You could have killed more peasants. You could have killed the towers and sent summons into the main base. Lots of lame stuff to be done. And I mean lame in the best way possible. Sorry, but this game looks so silver. Well, that's kind of the point of the episode. As it says in the title. And in the intro. And we'll say in the outro. Creeping. Needs to get level 3/3. Again, going back in. And now's your opportunity to break the towers. At last. Break them. And we're finally going to break them. Could we have done this earlier? Absolutely, we could have. Absolutely. Now the towers have been broken, but no town portal. which is rough. Sorry, you guys might hear a truck backing up. Because, of course, there's construction going on always. But the Blizzard is going to start killing everything. Is this an overcommitment? It certainly is. Could we have done this sort of a commitment before there was Blizzard and before there was Tier 3 and Tri-Hero? We certainly could have. Just me bringing cake. Okay, a lot of bears falling. We've successfully killed the towers. We should be trying to get out as fast as we can. Because what can we do now that we've broken the towers? We can just send summons in all day. And we're essentially one base, and, you know, we have a level 7 Beastmaster. Right? We have a level 7 Beastmaster. This is a pretty good hero. It's a pretty good hero. We have a couple of Mountain Giants now, but there's a lot of Knights. And our opponent is mining again. 61 against 42 supply. It's slipping out of our hands. Don't understand why he's not going for a second hero. A Demon Hunter second could be strong, certainly. And there's lots of creeps left as well. But generally, if you're going to go Demon Hunter second, you know, probably want an expansion because you need to give a little bit of space to the opponent in order just to creep level 3 Demon Hunter. And you need that expansion early because or else it becomes very hard to get up once the Archmage has space to come and cancel it, once there's an army, once there's lots of town portals being purchased. Well, thank you, Tristan. Thank you. Yes, but an earlier Demon Hunter, I think, would have been a totally acceptable choice from Sythren. At this point, probably too late. Before the 10-minute mark, probably acceptable. Here's the ultimate yet again. Sythren, 3 Mountain Giants, could pick up trees and probably even kill this expansion, but he has had no town portal the whole game. Because he's not being a lame-o. He needs to be more of a lame-o. Nice position, though. It's hard to Stormbolt him, but now he's going to get Stormbolted. But the Blizzard is too strong. And there's no town portal. There's just no town portal. And look at the Mountain Giants fall because there's Knights, because we let our opponent have a lot of lumber, a lot of economy, and was able to get up the strong army that you get when you're on 2 base. So we said at the beginning of the game there were about 3 options. And although Sythren, I think, played this, you know, pretty well macro-micro-wise, I think strategically he didn't really choose either of those options. Of those 3 options, sorry. So strategically a little bit lost, but everything else, you know. The Beastmaster's a good choice on the Last Refuge. The macro was good. You got your Mountain Giants, you got your Bears, you got your Dryads, you know. You microed fine, you took some good skirmishes. But you gotta be more lame. You gotta be more lame. Much more lame. Or you have to expand early, or you have to all-in. All-in Huntresses, Mercs, Archers, Ancient Protectors, kill the expansion. When you kill the expansion, you're already on level 4, level 5, and then you just kill them. You just kill them. Because we saw how strong the Beastmaster was. Now look at the hero levels. We said 3-3 for the Paladin and Mountain King are going to be sufficient, but 4-3 is just gravy. Level 6 is going to be even more gravy. It's going to be the whole boat. 0-0 upgrades on the Mountain Giants. Sundering Blade Knights with 1-0 upgrades. You could call that a hard counter. You could call that a hard counter. A couple of priests out of position, but I think it's too little too late regardless of these priests. For Sythren. Sythren, old boy. And the Blizzard is nice. I do really like the Blizzard retrain at a Qubertai, and it was a very strong game. Very strong game. Again at a Qubertai. The viewer replay destroyer. We'll come to know him as. And GG is called. I'm sure they were in voice chat. That's why he didn't GG. All right, there's 3 down. We got 2 or 3 more replays to do. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back for some more replays. Okay, guys? Okay? All right. Thank you. Be right back. All right. Welcome back. Welcome back. Okay, we watched 3 replays now, right? 3 replays. And there's been some common threads. Some common threads. Well, what are these threads? Well, people have been creeping very well. They've had a very good idea, like a plan in mind, what they want to do. You know, they've understood the sort of general strategy. Of course, a lot of these have been pretty decent players. Diamond level, we've had a couple of gold level players, but even they crept pretty well, had a general idea of what sort of armies to get, how to macro up to them. So they had a pretty good idea. But what have been some general threads for mistakes people have made? Well, they haven't had a good idea of what the strategy should be, the in-depth stuff on the strategy, what you should do on the map to help you with the sort of army and units you're getting, right? Where you should be creeping, when you should be attacking, when you shouldn't be attacking, when you should be playing more hit and run sort of style in Sythren's case in the last replay. So sort of some strategical errors more than, as I said, we're not going to talk too much about mechanical errors because everyone makes mechanical errors. And if you're wondering sort of, well, how do I work on my micro? I think that's my biggest issue. You know, I've got a good mind for strategy. I know what I should be doing, but my micro always is what loses me games. Well, you pretty much just have to mass games. There's not really a good method for getting better at micro other than just playing a lot. There's some custom maps, stuff like that, but really, you know, as long as you know what to micro, like you know how the armor and attack types work, you know how your army should be positioned, you know how long you should be fighting for, you know what your series of things you should do in the fight, like if you're orc against undead, speed scroll in, land a stomp, eat with the Kodos, get your blade on a statue, make sure your Shadow Hunter isn't out of position for a Silence Coil Nova. You know, a series of things that you should know what to do in the fight, but then the micro is really the mechanics of how you do that, right? So there's ways to improve micro, but it's mostly just grinding games. So that's why we don't talk too much about mechanical micro issues in these games because, you know, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to help you with that? Some more strategy errors that we've seen, which is nice. All right, we got 2 or 3 more replays. 2 or 3 more. 2 or 3 more. Again, thank you to everyone who sent them in, and, you know, if I don't get to your replay, you know, we'll try to next time. And feel free to send in another replay as well. All right, replay 4. So this is going to be BlackPheonix, an American orc player. I believe a very youngling, too. I think he's younger than 20. Maybe I'm misremembering. Yeah, an American orc player. And we're going to see him up against our good old friend Paz, but this time playing Undead. Again, another sort of GNL practice partner. You're 24? Okay, well, I'm 24, too. We're both young. How about that? I just haven't played this game for long. Okay, 24. Well, 24 is young in Warcraft years. Yeah, but we're going to see our good friend Paz. Qubertai and Paz, both 2, you know, sort of diamond level players that practice a lot with the GNL guys, which are a lot of the people sending in replays. So we're going to see BlackPheonix, in fact, against Paz. I'm going to be watching it from his perspective. This will be an orc against undead on Northern Isles. Ooh. 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 Replay number 4. Paz plays all races, but his best race is indeed Night Elf. His second best race is indeed Undead. All right. A nice ping. Thank you for that, people from the past. This is a Ted Fiend's build order. Alter Zeg. Not going to see Cripplord. What we will be talking about is probably some Death Knight play. Maybe some Blade Master play. Next week, we're going to be talking about Cripplord play. We're going to be talking about Hitman as well, and how he deals with Cripplord play with Blade Master, without cheesing, without going Farseer. So tune in next week as well to see some more pro replay analysis. But, you know, this will be another Orc against Undead. We'll see if it's Blade Master. We'll see if it's Farseer. I'm going to have a sip of water, though. I encourage you guys to do the same. Sip of water time. Sip of water time, everybody. Blade Master. Oh, yeah. Death Knight. Ted Fiends, as I say. Shop coming up. When was the shop built? 16 supply. What does that mean? Well, generally when you go a shop on 16 supply, or 19 in this case, and not 20 supply, it means you're just going to take the item. And then you're going to go aggressive after that, because the timing works out that if you build the shop on 16 supply, the shop is done after you just take the item here, and then run across the map. But if you take the entire camp, you can build it a little bit later. What does building it later gain you? Well, a little bit more lumber from the peon who would otherwise be building the shop. So we'll see. Will BlackPheonix just take the item, or will he take a whole camp? If he takes the whole camp, I would say that's a mistake. A very small one, but a mistake. Paz, Death Knight. We'll see if he gets any Skeletons Purge, but, you know, mechanical issues. Mechanical issues. Critical Strike first. Love to see it, but that does mean the shop timing was a mistake, because Critical Strike first means you don't have Windwalk, means you will creep this next for level 2. And we see the shop already finished. If it was about 10 seconds later, it would be finished by the time the Blade Master was finished as well. Paz, very good creeping. Take note, Speedo. Tech on the way. No skeletons dying, so very fast creeping. Acolyte is here. What the Acolyte can do is cancel salve, stuff like that. You can get a lot of value out of this Acolyte. 1 Burrow Tech, 2 coming on the way out. The base build, maybe not the best. Against a Death Knight, I think against a Criplord, there's an argument that you should only have your base open in 1 slot because of the new beetle size. But against a Death Knight, if you know your opponent's going to go Death Knight, as these two players know each other, so I'm sure BlackPheonix did know Paz was going to play Death Knight, I think a very open base, so both sides being open, and the shop being very safe. You sometimes even see Orc players put their shop like far in the back. So maybe not the best base build against Death Knight, but maybe acceptable if it was a Criplord. Creeping right in the Death Knight's face. You can also creep jack the Death Knight here, but BlackPheonix choosing to take away some items, probably going to get this stolen, but he's going to get the item, and as a Pendant of Energy, that play was good. That play was well worth it. A little risky, but well worth it. Should have checked the items to see there was no Dust of Appearance, and immediately Windwalk back in. There's no reason for Paz to get any of these creeps, because he has no Dust and he has no Coil. So a little bit of a mistake there again. You could have done a lot more here. But what's he going to do in the meantime? He's going to go and probably take the Tuskar away. Which is kind of cool because look how the creeps are orchestrated now. There's a green camp left, which I imagine Paz is going to take right away. And then when the Lich is out, what do you go to? What do you creep? Do you creep this? That's pretty difficult. Do you creep this? Difficult. Difficult. Aggressive. Maybe you can take this, but it's really out of the way. So the creeps are now orchestrated in such a way with BlackPheonix taking this Tuskar, there's not really much to creep when the Lich comes out, which I think is a good play from him. How can you know if it's CL or DK before you choose a base layout style? Very good question. You can't. You can peon scout and know once the peon reaches, but you kind of have to guess when you make your base layout. And if I was against Paz, and BlackPheonix knows Paz as well, because they play a lot together. As I said, these are people that practice in GNL quite a bit. You know that Paz plays Death Knight, not Criplord, so you could sort of preemptively build your base in a Death Knight countering sort of way. But if you're against someone like Say-So, maybe, from New Zealand, the Undead player, he likes Criplord very often, so maybe you'd build it in more of a Criplord-centric way. Right? Or if you're against Inseparable, he likes both Criplord and Death Knight, so you kind of have to guess or do a compromise and do something in the middle. Tier 3 on the way out as well. Shadowhunter, Bestiary. So this is the Hitman style. What's the Hitman style? Well, Hitman style is immediate Tier 3 tech. You get 3 grunts, you get your Shadowhunter at Tier 3, and then what do you go into? You go into 2 Kodos when your Bestiary and your Warmill pop out, and Headhunters. You get no Raiders. You just get Tri-Hero, Blademaster, Shadowhunter, Torn Chieftain, 2 Kodos, and Headhunters. That's it. Very simple. But what is it? It's very greedy because you don't have a lot of units early. And so this is the Hitman style because, again, BlackPheonix knows who Hitman is. Also an American player. I'm sure he got this style from Hitman, so we'll see how well he emulates Hitman. All right.
A player's forces are under attack.
Paz has taken what he can because so many of his creeps were taken away earlier. What should the Orc player focus on at this stage in the game? Level 3 Shadowhunter at all costs. Don't do anything until your Shadowhunter is level 3. Your Blade Master can do things because BlackPheonix has nicely crept his Blade Master up to level 3, but don't do anything until the Shadowhunter is level 3. Gonna try to cancel the Slaughterhouse. A little bit ambitious, I would say. A little bit ambitious. We'll see, because he saw the Lich coming. You got to be careful because Paz could go Nova, although we know he already went Frost Armor. BlackPheonix does not know. So he's going to speed scroll out, a nice play, but he's creeping at the same time. Creeping at the same time. You could creep this next, or you could go to the expansion, creep this, and then creep your little Spidey boy over here, and that would be level 3. 1 Wind Rider. All right. This is because, this is a little bit of a mistake if you're comparing it to the Hitman style, as Paz takes the shop aggressively because he can. You generally would want to build your War Mill before the Bestiary because you want reinforced defenses as early as possible. Just because that's what you need against Undead, because you want to be very passive. Oh, a Fiend. Oh, there's another Hex. Okay, not going to commit. Actually, a Town Portal. Oh, that's a mistake from Pazzy Boy. That's a mistake, but nicely getting a Fiend there, getting a Town Portal. What I was saying, you want the War Mill before the Bestiary because you can get reinforced defenses very early, and you can't really afford Kodos before you're already tier 3 because you need your Torn Chieftain, you need your Orb of Lightning, stuff like that. So the Kodos come later, but the reinforced defenses are so cheap, 75 gold, you can get them early. So War Mill before Bestiary with this Hitman style of play. And the Wyvern that you built runs into the creeps, but again, mechanical issues, we don't focus on those. Not a big deal. Not a big deal because we kill the Fiend and force the Town Portal. Flute is pretty nice. Tier 3 is also pretty nice for Pazzy Boy, getting the Orb. Right on time. Our Shadowhunter's going to get level 3. But was that a good fight at the shop? Was it a good fight? If we're only talking about, you know, what we're supposed to do. Was it a good fight? I would say no. I would say going aggressive against the shop with a level 2 Shadowhunter was not a good play. Because if we're stuck on level 2 Shadowhunter, if that fight doesn't go as well as it did, we're not going to get level 3, we're going to be forced into a bad position, and we need level 3 to fight. But it did work out well, so calculated risk, and it works out. Kodo out. War Drums on the way out. Torn Chieftain, Orb of Lightning. Good stuff. Red Camp being crept by Paz, a risk that he needs to take because he's a little bit behind at this stage. Not the best item, but he already got his item he wanted.
A player's forces are under attack.
Now the Shadowhunter is level 3. Should you take a fight when your Shadowhunter is level 3? You don't really need to as the Orc. You never really need to fight unless you're up against an expansion. Like a Creepjack like this is good. But if you're able to just run around as the Orc in this situation and creep the map and the Undead lets you, you should be happy to do that. Because similar to that Amazonia replay we watched earlier, where the human has the disadvantage later on, that's similar to the Undead in this matchup. If the supplies get up to 70, 80 supply and the heroes are able to creep, the Orc is always going to have the advantage in the later stages of the game. So if both players are just able to creep up, it's going to be better for the Orc. So the Undead is the one who has to be proactive with taking fights, not the Orc necessarily. But it's not bad because BlackPheonix is getting some value and he is ahead, like I said, so he can win these fights. So it's not bad to take these fights. Not bad at all. But just as a rule of thumb, I would say. A rule of thumb. Headhunters coming out. As I said, Kodo, Headhunters, the Wyvern, not necessary because it messes up your gold, but just a couple of Kodos, some Headhunters, and then if you're going to break up keep, after you have 2 Kodos, I'd say then you can get Wyvern. Never more than 2 Kodos. Never more than 2 Kodos. BlackPheonix going to get some creeps aggressively, and this is what you can do. Instead of taking a fight when you're a little bit ahead, you can take creeps aggressively when you're ahead. And this is good because you're getting one-sided experience. Your opponent isn't killing any of your units, but you're killing some neutral units and getting experience. So, you know, your opponent doesn't gain anything at all. The Blade Master could be, what Hitman likes to do is buy dust and catch off reinforcements. What would he catch off here? Ooh, he'd catch off a Fiend, an A-Bomb. Probably the Fiend more likely because the A-Bomb would most likely be saved by the Death Knight. But you have Dust in case of Burrow. You have Orb to lock the units down, and your Shadowhunter is nicely creeping up. BlackPheonix is ahead, and when you're ahead as the Orc here, you should generally try to get an expansion up. So that's what he does, and a nice play. Gets crazy items. Very crazy items. Jesus, okay. All right, Heal Ward's also a very good item for Orc. Okay, how can we lose at this point? We've got the expansion up. We're creeping up. Our heroes are good. Our items are good. Our army is ideal. Could eventually get some Spirit Walkers. Actually, we're getting them right now. The Pit Lord coming out. How can we lose? That's what we should always be thinking about when we're ahead. When we're not ahead, we should be thinking about how can we get ahead, of course. It's easy. It's easy. It's obvious. But when we are ahead, it's hard to not throw the game, and it's hard to actually capitalize on an advantage. So how can we lose right now? How can we lose? What can happen that could make us lose? Shadowhunter Explosion, says somebody. Of course, that is the number one thing, which is why I think Paz here, my friend, the Crypt Lord is a mistake. Or Crypt Lord, the Pit Lord is a mistake. Because the Pit Lord is very strong, but it doesn't give us a way back into the game. Especially when we're behind on economy. We are ahead on supply if we're Paz. But the heroes for the Orc are very strong, and he's soon enough going to have a supply advantage because he has an expansion. What the Dark Ranger instead would give us is the opportunity to silence Coil Nova the Shadowhunter and get back into the game. Because we are behind in the game. We are behind. But yes, the main thing we can lose with is hero focus. So what do we need to do? When we get into a fight, we should have invulns ready. This heal pot should be on the TC, and the Shadowhunter should be as far back as possible. That's how we can lose. Heal Ward not being killed. Stomps are good. Kodo eating. Statues being focused. So he's checking all the boxes micro-wise. Checking all the boxes, and it's looking like we're going to win. We may actually win. Shadowhunter has so much mana, so again, another reason why losing the Shadowhunter would suck. We lose 500 mana. Death Knight. Invuln is possible. Okay, it does go off. Torn Chieftain, a little bit exposed as well. Spirit Walker not Spirit Linking, and there it is. Our Shadowhunter is out of position. It's dead. It's dead. So this is the way back into the game for old Pazzy Boy. As he killed the Shadowhunter. The reason I don't hide the in-game timer, by the way, is because I like you guys to see the actual timings of the game. But in the future, I can hide it if you guys want me to. Because I like to be able to do this and be like, look at the time. Even though it's at the top, it's easier to point to this and say, look at it. But all the peons are falling. We lost our Shadowhunter. We can't fight without a Shadowhunter. We've used the mana pot without dropping the 2 Pendants of Energy. And the expansion is falling. Just like that, we lost our Shadowhunter. We're in a very bad position. But it's not entirely over. Because the supplies are equal. The Undead's invested a lot of units into winning this fight and killing the expansion. But we still have crazy items. Definitely want to pick up that pendant, though. Definitely want to pick up that pendant.
A player's forces are under attack.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Nikos. Maybe I'll do that. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good idea. I will do that for next time, for sure. Thank you. That's a very good idea. All right, how can we lose again? We're still in a good position. We're still in a fight-winning position. We don't have the expansion. The expansion is our how do we win when we're ahead way of winning the game, right? We get ahead, and then we immediately Tiny Great Hall, and then we get so many units that even if we mess up our micro, we still win. But now we're even economically, but we can still win the fight. So how can we lose the fight? Again, we have to keep our Shadowhunters safe. That's Paz's way of winning the fight. You know when the game's about to end, but do you know who's going to win this game? Who's going to win this game, chat? 1 for BlackPheonix, 2 for Paz. Who's going to win? Who's going to win? Paz. With the supply advantage, 10 supply advantage. 10 supply advantage. No potion of invulnerability, but the Lich has very good items. I see 2 2s and 1 and 3 1s. 3 2s and 3 1s. See, not so obvious. But I do agree with your point that in some games it may be very obvious. 100% agree with you. I'm just kind of memeing with this, but 100% agree. And I will hide this bar in the next episode. Invuln on the Blade. Invuln on the Shadowhunter now, too. The Torrent Chieftain, if it falls, you can still win the fight as the Orc because you have 560 mana on your Shadowhunter. Right? But if the Shadowhunter falls, you lose all that mana. Okay, 67 against 55. If you were to say, whose shoes would you rather be in this game? Well, because I'm an Orc player, I would say BlackPheonix. But despite that, I would say the Orc still. Level 3 Torrent Chieftain, I think this is a very winnable fight for BlackPheonix. Still. Despite being down by 10 supply. Because his heroes are so good. His heroes are so good. And they're safe as well. They're safe as well. He's got a potion of mana. He's got 2 Kodos. The ghouls are being pulled. The boys are being pulled. And Paz really wants to win a fight. But his heroes are just not safe. His Lich is very strong, but his heroes are not safe. Wyvern. Okay, here it is. Here it is. Level 2 Pit Lord. Could do a lot of work. A lot of Fiends. 3 A-bombs, but there is 2 Kodos. So those 3 A-bombs could become 1. And we're fighting in the Orc base. But Paz is very intent on just ending this game. Blade going for the statues. Very nicely. Kodos should eat after the stomp. Don't think you have to eat the A-bombs just because they're more expensive units. Eat what you can and get out. Halaterra, good. The stomps are very good. The Kodos actually do manage to get an A-bomb, but I don't think you should try too hard to get A-bombs. Everything's being burrowed. That's a mistake. I would say that's a mistake. A lot of damage being wasted. You could just instead focus the Kodos down immediately. Coil Nova on the Kodos. There is another stomp. Could even stomp and then hex the Death Knight and kill the Lich here. Could have. Blade Master. Again, don't want to lose your heroes. That's how you lose the game. Especially in this matchup. Of course, that applies to all matchups, but in this matchup, look at the Pit Lord. Another thing Paz could do, put the claws and stuff. And Paz is actually going to GG out. He was about to lose everything. Very close game, right? A very close game. Very close game. Mistakes on both sides. But a very close game. Yeah, so a few things you can do there. I would say study some Hitman replays and work on those what actual units you're building at what time and what you're prioritizing. Do I prioritize my Orb? Do I prioritize my Torrent Chieftain? Do I prioritize getting my Kodos? And I would say you get your Tri-Hero, then you get your Orb, then you start pumping out those Kodos. And also reinforce defense very early. Think about when should I fight as the Orc player? Because Orc, again, is just, if there's one base, Orc is just happy to chill. They're just happy to chill. Right? So a few things to look at. But yeah, I would say if you're looking to emulate Hitman's style against Death Knight, he's got lots of replays out there. And it's a very clear style. No Banshee's a mistake? I would say so, yes. I would say so. Banshee's very strong. Too many A-bombs, maybe. You know, 1 is always good for Disease Cloud, of course. But yeah, I would have liked to see a few Banshees, especially if you're familiar with the Hitman style. He gets walkers very late. Even recently, Hitman hasn't been getting walkers at all. He's been staying on 50 supply, and he's been taking fights very aggressively. But if there's walkers that late, Banshees are very strong early on, and we saw how good the items were. I don't know what you mean. Sir Thomas. Okay. How long are we into the stream? About an hour and 50 minutes. One more replay? Guys think one more replay? I have a question. What are the decision-making factors to go or not for an expansion as the orc player? Pretty much after you win a fight. So here is very simple goals as the orc in this position against Death Knight. Against Cripplord, it gets much more complicated, and we're going to cover that next week. It's a music platform. No, I have not heard of it. I've not heard of it. I will look it up. Okay, but against Death Knight as a Blade Master player, right? There's lots of different strategies against Undead as Orc, and they're all very dependent on different expansion timings. But in this situation, Blade Master against Death Knight, one base to start. What you want to do first is you want to get up to tier 3 as the Orc. You want to get your Tri-Hero. You want to get Shadowhunter level 3. You want to creep the map. If you're ever forced into a position where you have to take a fight, because ideally you just want to get Tauren Chieftain level 3, Shadowhunter level 3, creep up, pick reinforcements off with your Blade Master, not really take any big engagements. And if you do, just eat with your Kodos and get out. But if you do win a fight decisively, if you're forced into one, then you immediately Tiny Great Hall, no matter what. If you win a fight decisively, immediately expand. If you don't, then you can pretty much play one base because you're going to have the stronger army in the long run. And eventually you're going to win a fight. If neither of you fight for a long time, eventually as the Orc you will win the fight because you're stronger later on. Does that make sense? So in this sorts of game, just win a fight, Tiny Great Hall, GG. Because then the Undead is forced to either counter expand, which you have a Blade Master scouting for that and denying that, or they have to all in your expansion, just like Paz did this game. And that was a very winnable fight for BlackPheonix. He just lost his Shadowhunter. So if you force them to all in, then you just take a good fight, you micro well, you keep your heroes alive, and you win. And you win. It's very simple. It gives you a win condition, because against Undead, you need to find that win condition, because you can't always just push into their base unlike other races. You know, you get a head against a human, sometimes you can just push into their base and kill all their peasants, and they can't do anything about it. But against the Undead, it can be very hard to break their base, even with a 10-20 supply advantage. So you need to find a workaround way of getting ahead and winning the game. Yeah, just win a fight. It's very simple. It's very simple, right? Very simple. Can we watch a human? Okay, we'll do one more replay, and I have 2 to choose from. Let's see. I have a human against Orc. We'll watch it from the human perspective. Have to sleep. Thank you very much. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I have a human perspective against Orc, or we have Orc perspective against Night Elf. So do we want to watch human against Orc or Orc against Night Elf? What do you guys want? Orc against Night Elf, Orc against Night Elf, Orc. Human. No. Human against Orc. Human, Orc against Night Elf. Oh, Jesus, it's 50-50. It's 50-50. Oh, no. How do I decide? It's 50-50. It's 50-50. Oh, Jesus. Orc against Night Elf. Human. Unless Elf loses. Orc against Night Elf. Always get wrecked against Night Elf. Orc, Elf. Okay, we had a lot of Orc versus Elves. So I'm sorry, Remote. We won't get to your replay today. But we are going to watch Jatz's replay. So Remote, if you're watching, we'll do a replay of yours next time. That's my promise to you. Okay? So we're going to do Orc against Night Elf. Orc against Night Elf. Okay, here we go. Last replay. And this is Jatz, who we're going to be watching the replay from, his perspective, against Sythren, the Beastmaster player from earlier. I doubt he'll play Beastmaster this time. All right. So, we're talking about making assumptions as the Orc player here. What assumptions do we have to make? Well, it's either going to be a keeper or it's going to be a demon hunter, right? It's going to be a keeper or a demon hunter. So what do we have to do against the keeper? And what do we have to do against the demon hunter? Do I have sound? Boo-doo-doo-doo. There we go. There's my sound. What do we have to do against the keeper? And what do we have to do against the demon hunter? Demon guessing. Yeah, because we do kind of have to flip a coin. We can peon scout. That's something we can do. And I would actually recommend orcs to peon scout. Depending on the map. I would recommend peon scouting. What are we peon scouting for? Well, we could check this. But more likely, we want to check if the Night Elf is going to Ancient War creep the expansion. Because that means they're going to expand immediately. And if they creep the expansion with an Ancient War, we can actually run down and harass it. And so we check with the peon if they're creeping this. If not, we check this. And if we rule those two out, then we know he's creeping this. So I'd recommend a peon scout on this map. Somebody asked about the base build. Well, against Demon Hunter, you want to keep only one slot open, block the other side, as Jatz has done here. He's blocked this side, so if the Demon Hunter runs into cancel tier 2, you can sort of block him in with only one unit. Against Keeper, I'd prefer a more open base build with a safe shop, because sometimes you'll get a hidden AP, Ancient Protector, and you'll have to defend against that. So if you have an open base with some burrows that can defend your barracks, your shop, it's very strong. Okay, so Blade Master's out. Construction outside. Sorry. Keeper on the way out. This will be level 2. Very easy camp to lose your Ancient War to, so good job, Sythren. Not losing your Ancient War. Blade Master's coming in. Critical Strike first, so we're going to see him creep level 2. There's a couple viable options on this map in terms of creep routes, and this is one of them, so nothing to critique there from Jatz. Tech on the way. And what do we have to be ready for, again, to go back to that point earlier, before we got lost in the base builds? So Keeper wants to expand early, so we have to be ready for that. They may also want to all-in us with APs. And a Demon Hunter, we want to be ready for Talons, we want to be ready for Lures. There's a lot of things we want to be ready for. But essentially, if there's a Demon Hunter, we want to go like Raiders and Walkers. If there's a Keeper, we want to scout for the expansion and go Grunt Shaman. But yeah, I would be assuming Keeper by default and Demon Hunter after I see it. I would always assume Keeper unless you have some information about the player, because Keeper is much more common today, and there's many more risks that come with Keeper early game. Right? But what are the risks that come with Keeper early game? Well, he can entangle and kill your Grunt if it's out of position. He can also hide APs against you. He can put them here and AP rush you. He could have an early expansion that you don't scout and you don't cancel. So there's a lot more risks, whereas Demon Hunter, it's just going to tech to tier 2 right away, so we don't actually have to find anything against Demon Hunter. We just have to eventually know that it's Demon Hunter. Sythren is going to put up 2 Ancient Wars. Spooky, spooky, spooky build. How are we going to defend this? So as the Orc player, what do we want to be doing right now? Well, we want to find the Keeper at all costs. We want to find the Keeper, and we want to chase the Keeper for literally the entire game. I'm not kidding. The entire game. You find the Keeper, so we crept level 2, that's fine. Then find the Keeper and right-click it and never stop chasing it. Never stop chasing it. And we'll see if Jatz does this, and then if he does, we'll talk a little bit about it. Grunts going back. What can the Grunts do? Because, of course, they can't be with the Blade Master, because they would get entangled and killed. What can they do? They can scout for potential Ancient Protectors that are hidden. They could scout maybe for potential expansions somewhere, you know, where would the expansion be? Like probably here, you know, could be even like here, or sometimes it's here. So there's places the Grunts could scout where they're not at risk, especially if the Blade Master's chasing the Keeper as he should be right now. But since the Keeper has been lost, we might actually start to lose something if we're Jatz. Burrowing up. We don't know quite yet that we're going to be all in if we are, because we haven't seen any Wisps come across the map. And, you know, 2 Ancient War could still be an expansion. Shadowhunter on the way out. This is a position, if I was the Orc player, I would be expecting a Tree of Life to come up right now. I would be expecting a Tree of Life. I would be thinking in the back of my mind, he's going aggressive. He's not level 3 yet, so he must have some motive for going aggressive. What's that motive? It's to safely get an expansion up. How do you deal with that expansion? Well, a typical response is to come over to the shop and buy a Staff of Teleportation, right? And then you can get back home if you need to. Your Shadowhunter will be out soon. Your Shadowhunter sits behind the burrows, puts up Serpent Wards, and your Blade Master goes and cancels the expansion and then staffs back home. Because the Keeper isn't there to defend the expansion that's constructing. Right? So this would be a good play from Jatz just before any of this happened. Now he's in a position where he kind of has to defend. And if Sythren was building an expansion, there'd be nothing we can do to cancel it, right? Does that make sense? All right. So a little bit of a mistake from Jatz already. A little bit of, you know, maybe not knowing what the possibilities for this Keeper opponent is. Spirit Lodge, I imagine, although it definitely should be built in the back. Wouldn't be surprised if that got canceled. Grunt, again, that's a micro problem. The Grunt, obviously, Jatz didn't want the Grunt to go out here, but a little bit of a slip up. And these things happen. And these things happen. What kind of army do we want to get as the Orc? We want to get Grunts and Shamans. Grunts with upgrades. And we want to get level 3 Shadowhunter, if we can. The expansion is going up, so just imagine. Just imagine. What has this Blade Master done here? Not a lot, really. Not a lot. He's done a little bit of damage on one Huntress, but he hasn't really defended it successfully, whereas the Shadowhunter is defending it quite well. Imagine if the Blade Master, instead of coming back home, bought a Staff of Teleportation, went here, the expansion would be canceled, and then he could come back and defend this. And, you know, also imagine on top of that, the Spirit Lodge is in the back, uncancelable. Also imagine the Grunt wasn't lost here, right? 3 things, very easy to change, that would have put us in a very good position in this game, because our opponent, the expansion would be canceled, he'd be on tier 1, 2 Ancient War Huntresses, and we'd have a Shadowhunter with Serpent Wards, soon to have Purge for the Entangle, right? We'd be in a very good position, but because we haven't done those 3 things, it's going to be very rough. We're going to lose our Spirit Lodge, the expansion's going to get up for free, and, you know, our Blade Master isn't scouting for anything. We don't even know if there's a tech. We don't know if there could be Hippogriff Riders for all we know, because we haven't scouted the main base either. But we can assume there's 2 Ancient War Huntresses. So Sythren, I would say, is very ahead right now. It's very ahead. Ooh, a lot of damage, though. A nice play from Jatz to realize an opening when he sees one. There is another Windwalk. Oh, no, there actually isn't. Keeper. Probably going to be able to get away. Oh, the critter. Oh, no, the critter. Oh, Jesus. Oh, no. Well, that's why you kill the critters as the Orc player, but not generally as the Night Elf player, and now Sythren has to go back. And although Jatz not doing everything perfectly here, he still was able to defend it with seeing a nice opening and capitalizing on it. The Keeper was a little bit exposed, so he went for the Keeper. And he got the kill, and now Sythren, although his expansion will come up safely, the game has probably been equalized. Game has probably been equalized, because Jatz lost a Grunt, he lost his Spirit Lodge, and he's up against an uncancelled expansion. But Sythren, he lost his Keeper, so probably even now. Probably even. What should Jatz's goal be now? Well, he's still got to go scout, because he doesn't even know if there's an expansion. He doesn't even know if there's lords coming up, if there's winds coming up. He's got to scout with his blade. And he needs to get Shadowhunter level 3 as early as possible. Once you have Shadowhunter level 3, you can then push the expansion. And what does the push against the expansion do? It enables you to get your own expansion up safely without it getting canceled. So level 3 Blade certainly could be scouting right now with that. But going to continue to creep. This is something that maybe, you know, players below Diamond, below Masters. I'm not exactly sure what Jatz's rating is. I think he's high Platinum, low Diamond maybe. They don't use their Blade Master too much because it's difficult multitasking. He is going to now, and he's actually going to see the expansion on time. And the Shadowhunter should certainly be a solo crep this entire time. But he's going to get level 3 Shadowhunter soon enough if he takes one more big camp. Shadowhunter preferred over BM3, right? Correct. Absolutely correct. Blade Master level 2 is perfectly acceptable. Blade Master level 1 is perfectly acceptable if you're forced into that situation even. But Shamans are on the way out. I would love to see upgrades from this War Mill. What else I would love to see is a single tower and a Great Hall going down behind this, because imagine there's a Great Hall going down. How is Sythren going to stop that Great Hall? He's not going to be able to because he's forced to defend his own expansion. So that's the reason why orcs do this sort of a push, is to get their own expansion up. But you want level 3 Shadowhunter for it. Town Portal being forced. So again, Jatz is finding an opening, and he's taking it. He's actually in a pretty good position. He's got a heal scroll, but he's low on mana, so I doubt he's going to win in the long run in this fight, but you know, he's forced Sythren back quite a bit. Did he scout the expansion? He didn't really, no, but he could assume there was an expansion coming up. What's Jatz's biggest mistake? He should be building an expansion right now. Certainly should be building an expansion, because since he's not building an expansion, right? He's all in. He's all in. This is it. If he doesn't break the expansion right now, and he has to go back home and heal, he loses the game because he can't get his own expansion up, and Sythren's going to get up to 100 supply archers with tier 3. And Jatz is going to be stuck on one base. So this is all in. So although he may win this fight, although he may win the game off this push, if there's a world where he gets out microed, where he loses a hero, you know, where he runs out of mana early, the game is over because he doesn't have a follow-up plan, that follow-up plan being a Great Hall coming up. He's all in. He's all in. So this push is good. The push is good, but the reason for the push, I think is something that Jatz doesn't maybe fully get. And that the reason for this push is to get a Great Hall up behind it. Level 3 Shadowhunter, but he's killing a lot. So as I said, you know, he may win this fight, but there's a world in which he loses the fight, and then the game is over. But it's still very close. Sythren's still mining. Tree of Life is exposed. So yeah, there's a few mistakes, right? A few mistakes out of Jatz, but it looks as though he's going to just scrape by in this fight and break the expansion. And when you break the expansion, it's pretty good. Sythren made, of course, a few mistakes to not be able to hold this. His Alchemist, as we see now, is very late. He didn't spend a lot of his gold because he's so low on lumber, and he was forced to Town Portal out and lost his Keeper earlier. So there's a few mistakes that allowed Jatz to actually win this fight, but it was still pretty close. Second Ancient War before teching was bad. I would agree with that, yes. I would agree with that, yes.
A player's forces are under
And,
attack.
you know, there's a world in which right now Jatz has an expansion up mining as well. And if he hadn't have broken the expansion of Sythren there, he still has the follow-up plan of his own expansion. But he did so much there, and he killed the expansion because he managed to win the fight, that he's probably going to win now. Again, like to see some grunt upgrades. Absolutely, absolutely. If you can get 3/3 grunts with Bloodlust, that's good. That's good here. Get 3/3 grunts with Bloodlust, some Raiders, some Kodos. That should be your ideal army against, you know, Huntress, Archer, Night Elf players. But now, you know, 47 against 40 supply, one base, one base. If you're on equal economy, such is normally the case with Orc, you're in a good position. You're in a good position. And Jatz is getting mana. His Blade Master is absolutely insane. Sythren's on level 1 Alchemist, but he does get double heal scroll. Not re-expanding. He definitely should because he needs to find a way back into the game, but probably going to see Sythren GG out pretty soon. Again, how can we lose? Well, we could probably lose our Shadowhunter and then lose the game. But it still would be hard even if we lost our Shadowhunter. Sythren trying, but Orc Imba, as people say. And yeah, Jatz takes the game. So what can we learn from that? Well, there's a few things. I think the Staff of Teleportation is very crucial. right? To enable you to not only cancel the expansion of the Night Elf, but also defend our main base when the Night Elf tries to counterattack. So you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, with your Blade Master while defending back at home. And another thing would be to get level 3 Shadow Hunter, prioritize it, right? Get it as early as possible, well harassing and scouting with your Blade Master with Staff of Teleportation, so it's always safe. Even if it gets surrounded, it can Staff of Teleport out. And then when you do that timing, after you've gotten your level 3 Shadow Hunter, when you do that timing, you can counter expand behind it. And then the games may go longer, but you'll have a much higher win rate, after that all into the expansion. Because then it won't be an all-in. It won't be an all-in anymore. All right, so that's all the replays for today. We did 5 replays. Are there any questions in the chat about anything? About the structure of the show, about the replays we watched, about what the next show will be, anything at all? Anything at all? Yeah, and of course it favors you to be 2-base against Night Elf because your heroes are very good. Whereas their heroes fall off once there's Dispel. The Alchemist is always good, but the Keeper really falls off once there's a lot of Dispel, of course. Thank you, Hydro. Thank you, Celebrate. 2 birds, 1 staff, of course. Beautiful. How important is upgraded grunts? I would say very important because the Night Elf is going to prioritize 3/3 upgrades as well, and so should you. And really, it's about sustaining because the grunts aren't necessarily all your damage. What is most of your damage is Serpent Wards against the Huntresses, Lightning Shield against the Archers, your Blade Master against the Archers, and the grunts, although good against the Archers, are mostly just there to stay alive as long as they can. So getting armor upgrades against the Acid Bomb and having heal scrolls ready and having, mirror image for frontline upgrades are very, very important. Not just against Night Elf, but also against human. For similar reasons, because Stomp and Lightning Shield and Chain Lightning is most of your damage against human. Right? So very important, I would say. And you should get them. You should get your War Mill up as soon as you can and get 1 armor upgrade immediately. Immediately 1 armor upgrade against Night Elf. And then after that, I would say even try to get a 2nd armor upgrade. Yeah, and prioritize, of course, because it's, for obvious reasons, Acid Bomb takes away armor. Your armor upgrades will counteract that. So try to get 0-2 grunts, and then even after that, try to get 2-2 and 3-3 grunts. Yeah, and armor upgrades with heal scrolls, as someone says in the chat, very good, especially with Glaive Bounce, because Huntresses essentially do splash damage. And Acid Bomb, splash damage. Right? In Orc vs. Undead, you said taking the whole first camp was a mistake just because the shop timing or something else. Just because of the shop timing. The creep route itself wasn't a mistake. The shop timing was the mistake. But the creep route going crit first and creeping level 2 was perfectly fine for BlackPheonix in that game. How to defend Expo is human versus anyone. FS, Keeper, Beastmaster, AM level 3, maybe some good example of defense, especially hard if opponent comes with mercs, right? Yeah, so you're talking about more of like fast expansion, which you can fast expand in all 4 matchups as human, right? So one thing to focus on is, 1, creeping well, of course, getting really good and comfortable with creeping the expansion so that if you get harassed while you're creeping it, you're very comfortable doing that. You're not getting things last hit. You're not taking too much damage on your Footman or your Archmage. You're tanking mostly on the Water Elemental. So after you're really good at creeping it, and you can minimize damage there, I would say Sim City, which is where you place your buildings, where your towers are placed, how you blockade the expansion is very important. So spend some time creeping the expansion and then just building the expansion itself and putting buildings up in such a way that it's very hard to break the expansion. Past that, past the creeping and buildings, I would say using militia when you absolutely need to and getting comfortable with just committing to using militia very often to defend, and also, knowing when to tech and when you need more footmen, more mercenaries, earlier defend. Knowing when to invest and when to be greedy and tech with an expansion. I think the biggest problem for Orc is to adapt to in-game changes of strategy from Night Elf. Once we go Shamans and Grunts, switch to Raider Walker, how to handle it. Night Elf goes Dryads, Bears. Yes, absolutely. That's a very difficult thing about the matchup. Absolutely. The nice thing if they transition into lores is if they go dryads, you have serpent wards. If they go mountain giants, you have grunts with ideally 3/3 upgrades and bloodlust. The thing with them going lores is they can't always get that early expansion up, and you should be scouting with that blade with Staff of Teleportation, so you should be able to confirm what their army is and adjust to it. And against lores, you really can still go grunt shaman with some kodos, with some raiders mixed in there. But, it's still good against lores. Against talons, you, of course, need to switch into a different army. Headhunters, raiders. It becomes a lot more complicated if you're against keeper talons. But, Hitman played some nice games in War 3 Champions recently that you can watch if you want to learn how to play against that. Arc did that a lot against him, and Hitman was able to win that series. What's your main race? I'm an orc player. Main race orc. But yeah, scouting against Night Elf, very important. So that peon scout initially, and then later on with your Blade Master, because you need to know there's so many strategies Night Elf can do against Orc and other races, of course. That's really their strength, is ability to change strats on the fly, that you need really good scouting against Night Elf just overall. Just tuning in, I haven't checked last episode, but yeah, so specific themes match up to the TheoryCraft. Could it be cool to add titles as well? Yeah, so it's going to be on a 1 month schedule, so 4 every Thursday. Sometimes there's 5 Thursdays in a month, but mostly there's 4. So the first and third Thursday of every month, we'll be doing pro replay analysis, and that the race of those players will change. So the first Thursday of this month, we did Sock, human. Next week, we're going to do Hitman, orc, and then next month, we're going to do Night Elf and Undead. And then on the second Thursday, we're going to do what we did today, which is viewer replay review. And on the fourth Thursday, we're going to do an interview. So yeah, it changes, but there'll always be different races, and I'll try to make it even for everyone. Lumber management as well for the expansion, says Elusive. Yeah, lumber management, very important if you're trying to hold an expansion, because you need to know when you can call militia, when you can invest in defense, stuff like that. Has double upgrades ever been a thing, as in like 2 blacksmiths, stuff like that? It's been a thing for human when they go tanks or when they're on 2 base. Human has gotten 2 blacksmiths in the past, but orc has never really gone 2 war mills. Not really a thing you see too often. If that is the question, you could reiterate if that isn't what you're asking. I often see that orcs get an early shop and it's ready when BM finish creeping just to who has the item, not the entire camp. Do I need to skip the scout peon? Nope. You just build it after, so you have 7 peons on lumber, or 8 if you're scouting, right? But you just build it after the last peon instead of 1 before. So you build it on 17 supply instead of 16 supply, and then if you creep the whole camp and you build your shop on 17 supply instead of 16, it'll be finished in time. But if you're just going to take the item, then you can build it on 16 supply and it will be done in time for you to just run to that shop straight after taking the item. But you can mess around with it. I'd encourage you to mess around on different maps. Why don't humans normally fast expand against orc? I think it's a very good strategy. I just think it's more difficult than the current style they play. And I think players like Infi and TH, they do experiment a lot more with fast expansions. And I think on certain maps, Echo Isles, Northern Isles, of course, Terranistan is standard already. I think it's very good. And I think human players should do it more often, because we talked about mixing up the strategy earlier, right? As the human player against undead in that earlier replay on Amazonia. But as you know, in every matchup, if we can mix up our strategy and have more than one trick in our book, then it's good to do, because then it keeps our opponents guessing. So I think more humans should fast expand against orc. Yeah. His question was different. Well, you can reiterate. And if anyone else has questions before we wrap up. Good questions. Really good questions. Last week was good questions. This week, good questions. Good stuff, guys. Once heard Hitman say he doesn't know what to do against fast expand. So what should orcs do against fast expand? Well, what they generally do, and Hitman is a very, very knowledgeable, good player, much better than myself and much more knowledge than I have, but generally they go Panda second, and they go into like 2 to 4 Wyverns with double bestiary into mass raiders. They can also go Raider Walker with a Tauren Chieftain second, creep up, and try to get a counter expansion. There's sort of two veins. And maybe I'll do an episode on countering fast expansion as Orc in the future, but it's difficult, and there's not really a clear-cut way that Orcs have been dealing with fast expansion. A lot of people do it very differently. You want to know which timing you have to build the shop to have it ready when you creep. Oh, right, just the item. Yeah, it's on 16 supply. You build it on 16 supply. Can you confirm or deny a 4-way McNugget challenge? I cannot confirm or deny that. Orc for spellbreakers and slow is extremely tough. Any thoughts on that? Well, you have to scout whether they're going Riflecaster or early Sanctums. If they're going early Sanctums, your expansion is very safe to get up because it's hard for them to cancel it. So I'd recommend an early expansion, and then lots of Wyverns, lots of Kodos. If you're on a map with a Merc camp, lots of Berserkers as well. What's the most friendly race to return back to for a Rusty player? Well, Night Elf is very different. Orc is very different from back in the day. I'd say Human and Undead are the most like they used to be. And I'd say of Human and Undead, I'd say Undead is more simple to play because you can play one build. So I'd recommend probably Undead. But go with whatever you enjoy the most, and just based on enjoying something, you'll play more and you'll get better because of that, right? All right. Very cool. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you all watching, and we'll be back next week for Orc Day. We're going to talk about Hitman and how he deals with Crypt Lord. And if you guys have any suggestions on how I can make the show better or things you'd like to see, future episodes you'd like to see, if you'd like the format to change, anything like that, YouTube comments, Discord, you can email me, you can tweet at me on the Twitter, and I'll of course read all of that. And you guys have been very, very kind recently. The YouTube comments, I read all of them, and they're very kind, and I appreciate that, guys. But of course, if you have any criticism or, constructive criticism, I'd be happy to read it. And we'll see you guys next week. Same time, same place, man. Thank you, guys.